Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to FYFY, everyone, for youth from youth. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Miriam.
Uh, we created this, little check-in, little podcast to just really make sure that, like, middle of the week, we want to make sure that we have our heads screwed on straight, that we're talking about the important topics, short and sweet, a nice little check-in, and make sure that we're still on the right track, right, Miriam?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's always nice to have a little check-in in the middle of the week to see how everyone's doing, see if everyone's weeks are going good, and
Right.
just have a little talk, a little chat, a little conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Definitely. I think this world moves really quickly, especially like I'm 23, you're 21. So it's like very young, getting into the world. It moves so quickly and there's such new things happening all the time that I think just being able to have like a little breather, a little check-in to make sure that, we're still accomplishing our goals and still like our spirituality is growing, our mental health is growing. I think that's so needed.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a nice little check-in for the youth too.
Hmm.
Just to see how you guys are doing. We hope that you guys are tuning in.
Hmm.
And for our regular tuners, hey everyone.
Hey.
Enjoy Fi-Fi and what we have in store for you guys.
Right. Right. So this is definitely an interactive conversation.
Mhm.
These episodes are going to be, like we said, short and sweet, just a little, pause, check in. But definitely, as we're talking, as topics are just like, resonating with you, or you have questions for us, put them down in the chat. We want to talk with you guys. We want this to be a dynamic conversation.
Exactly. And even in the next upcoming weeks, we'll take the questions that you have and take the conversation starters that you guys bring up and talk about the things and the questions that you have because we think that including you guys in the conversation is extremely important.
Extremely important, right? This is a two-way street, guys,
Of
okay?
course.
Definitely. But yeah, Miriam, I mean, what's up with you? What have you been kind of thinking about lately?
Yeah. So this week I was thinking about culture and how people are defined by their culture. People come from a lot of different walks of life, especially being in college. I've been experienced to a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different perspectives. And it
Mhm.
gets me thinking, how are people defined by culture? Are people defined by culture? What other influences are there in our lives that kind of shape who we are and shape our perspectives and the way that we see the world? So, the question I wanted to pose to you, Sarah, and the viewers is, are people defined by culture? And how
Mhm.
does culture go about defining people?
Wow, I think that's a really interesting question because I think what's normally posed as a question when people talk about identity and things like that and development is nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
So whether that is like the DNA that's in your blood
Yes.
versus like the environment that you grew up in. But I think culture is that's such an interesting perspective because culture could be in your DNA, right? Your ancestors could have carried down some vital importance, identity in your DNA, and that's part of your culture,
Mhm.
as well as the way you grew up is a strong, significant, like a strong, uh, identity, thing there going on. So,
Yeah, like it has a huge influence on your identity and who you
right,
become, the people you talk to, people you don't talk to.
right,
All of that, I think, is really shaped by your culture and even your morals, your values, all those things. But for this specifically, I wanted to tap into our culture
mhm,
specifically um, as Israelites. And just wanted to take like a trip down memory lane and think about how our culture affected our perspectives growing up and um, changed the way that we move around people, uh,
right.
people we do talk to, people we don't talk to, people who we spend time with, don't spend time with, how we spend time with people. Um, I think that, at least for me, growing up, I moved around a lot. while still being in Israel, obviously,
Mhm.
moved around a lot with my family. We lived in Texas and North Carolina for a good portion of my life, and then we moved back to Jersey when I was in middle school. So, in those upcoming years in Texas and North Carolina, I would say that my culture was something that I kept in mind always. But it's also like when you're younger, your culture isn't something that's really on your radar at the same
Mm,
time. You're kind of just talking to the people you talk to, creating relationships. And then eventually, at least with me, when I became really good friends with someone, then I would start introducing them to Israel and that side of me. I'm
mm.
not saying that there are different sides of me I turn
Right,
on or not,
right.
but like I only introduce Israel to people who I think are good enough to be
Mhm,
introduced to Israel.
mhm,
And I think that for me, like I would introduce people to Israel, and I'm very protective over Israel. So when I would introduce people, they would have questions, and I would love answering their questions like, oh, but why do you celebrate New Year's in spring when the New Year is in January? Like,
mm,
oh, because don't you see, like outside, the trees are blooming, the birds are singing, and they
mhm,
would understand that. And that would make me want to share my culture more.
mhm,
And I think that as I was growing up, I was just like, well, I'll share my culture with the people I think I should share it with. But the people who I don't think, I'm going to keep it away from. So my culture was a very um, sheltered and protected part
mhm,
of myself. Um, and it really shaped the way that I communicated with people and introduced myself and
mhm.
my values to people.
I like that. I like that you try to keep it a precious, like, thing, like,
Yeah.
only if you, like, pass this test are you able to
Yeah.
be welcomed into that part of my identity. No, I think as I get older, I start to do that. I
Mhm.
think I was the opposite. I was like I would, like, instigate fights with my friends, not fights, I call them debates, but they would
Yeah.
classify them as fights, where I'd pose those questions, "Hey, like, who do you pray to?" Like
Just
it's
get
like
real down and
I
dirty.
don't know. And I'd have all the facts down, and I'd wanna go and debate. It used to bring me such an adrenaline rush to be like, "You're wrong, and this is why you're wrong."
Yeah.
And so I would be like that all the time. My friends, like, definitely think I'm intense, and, but as I grow older, it's just a lot of energy to be putting out there that people don't even appreciate,
Right.
going back and, like, talking about certain things
Mhm.
that I just don't have time to just, like, be giving it out dilly-dally. It's like, no, if I think that you'll hold this precious, like, part of my life, like, very close to your heart, then I'd share it.
Right.
So I think it's interesting kind of the way you were doing it was one of the way I'm doing it now. I learned to do
Yeah. I
but
think yeah. No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna speak a little bit more just, growing up,
Mhm.
I will also lived a life to where I didn't really think about the culture aspect, and maybe that's just normal for kids growing up developing, you have other things on your mind besides,
Mhm.
"Hey, what's this thing I'm doing?"
Yeah.
There's not a lot of there's not a lot of questions, it's a lot of learning,
Mhm.
um, and so I think that those questions didn't come until later, like, "Hey, why am I doing this? Hey, what is happening? Why am I doing this and other people are doing that?"
Yeah.
And for me, I did have a huge identity crisis because I was homeschooled. My mom homeschooled me for 5 or 6 years, and
Mhm.
in that time was all Israel 24/7.
Mhm.
Black people in the
Yeah.
history books, things like that.
Mhm.
Going into school was just a culture shock because we went to public school after that. It was a culture shock because, first of all, I didn't see any Black people. I didn't know Jacobites were in the
Yeah.
history books. The
Yeah.
people around me were just white. I went to a PWI
Yeah.
middle school, and no one was, like, taking off Sabbaths, and no one was, like, talking
Mhm.
about Israel, and it was just like I personally felt like I had 2 identities with me, one when I went home and one I had to kind of, like, create to fit in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, because I went through the same thing, and Elementary school, I went to predominantly white elementary schools, whether that was in Texas or in North Carolina. And then when I came back up to Jersey is when I went to a more diverse middle school. But even throughout the diversity that was in the general population of my school, um, because I was in the higher level courses, I would really still be surrounded by white people or people who didn't look like me.
Yeah.
And that was really hard because it sometimes it made me question my own intelligence,
Mhm.
my own worth, because it was like I'm the only one here. Like I have to kind of be a representative
Mhm.
for my people, but also at the same time, like that's a lot of pressure. So
Mhm.
it's like you have that pressure to do well from your family and them
Mhm.
telling you, you know, you need to do well so you can get into a good school, get into a good college, all those things. But also like you have the pressure kind of from your peers too, and not wanting to let them down and looking like the Black girl who doesn't know what's going on, or kind
Mhm.
of that stereotypical whatever picture that people have
Mhm.
um, Black people in their heads. So it's just like even thinking about that and how that kind of shifted my perspective of kind of being a representative, not only for my family, not only for Israel, but also Black people or my Black peers because they weren't in the classes that I
Mhm.
was in. So
Yeah.
it's like kind of like a lot of pressure now that I'm thinking about it.
Especially.
Yeah, about all the different groups that I was kind of representing
Mhm.
at one time going throughout my whole education process, and even now still trying to make sure that you know I make my family proud, the nation proud, but also like the larger community proud
Mm.
too.
It's a lot of pressure to have on your shoulders. I think now, I'm not gonna say I've gotten used to it, but it feels doable now. But in 6th grade, going into public school, being the like, one of the only Black people, and having not been in public school previously, and then having this huge other culture that
Mhm.
is just completely different,
Yeah.
that's a lot to carry, it's overwhelming.
Yes.
But I think what that has taught me is to be like the things I care about and things I hold, I really care about and really hold because it had to fight against all of this outside pressure. So
Mhm.
if it like lasted in me throughout all that time, it's like strong right now.
Yeah.
It's like strong and my foundation has been like solid in those things
For
because it's
sure. Yeah. And I think that that's so true. Like having the foundation with you, you were being homeschooled for
Mhm,
so long, and then you had that set foundation, even though it was different
mhm,
from what you experienced when you left. Like you still had it, so you had your baseline. So you're like, okay, this is what I know I can come back to
right,
when things are going
right,
crazy or not able to understand, you know, the world around me. At least I have that foundation. And I think something great about Israel is having that community, having that foundation that you can always, you know, come back to bring you down,
mhm,
back down to earth.
right,
And I think that that's something that's always stuck with me because a lot of my peers, they have their families, but they had always come to me with like, oh, my mom did this, or oh, like my brother did this to me, like I'm not really sure how to go about it, my dad is doing this, and I'm just like, wow, I'm so happy that I don't have to go through
mhm,
that you're talking about, even like with them not really having that big extended family, like just being their family. Like I've never experienced that because it's always been Israel. Like
right,
Israel is my family and it's a big family. So I've never wanted for more in that
right.
sense.
If
So
anything, I want less, like less, like no, I'm kidding. Calm down.
like I never felt like I was missing out on anything.
Yeah, yeah,
Because it was like, wow, that must suck because
yeah,
I have my aunties I see every
yeah,
week, my uncles I see every week, my cousins I talk to on a daily.
yeah,
Like that Israel has been such a big like thing in my life, to the point where it's like, this is my family. Like,
Mhm.
this is my extended family. So when you're talking about you only see your family like once every couple years, or
Right.
you barely see them, I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I can't relate to that,
Yeah.
because every week,
Yes.
every
No,
week,
I think it's
sometimes,
so
oh my
true.
God. Go
I
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. I want you to finish.
Oh, no, no, no. You're good. You're
Okay,
good.
perfect. I was gonna say, I think that's so true because, like, even just growing up in school, I used to tell people I have like 100 cousins, like
Yeah,
100.
and it's true.
And it feels like that because when you're in, people's presence of Israel in Israel, your brethren, like you're hugging, you're
Yeah,
asking about their day, like yeah, you actually have this built-in family.
yeah.
And I think what I've learned as I grow older is that the culture of Israel has provided such necessary values into my life that otherwise I wouldn't have. Like the idea of family and the idea of just like even things like taking the Sabbaths, like
Mhm.
me, like I just started a new job. I'm a project coordinator of this like firm. Thank you. And it's been tough. Like I feel like I have to work day and night. I'm used to like working with family, so I don't have an off switch.
Mhm,
So I have to build in that off switch. And so when it came time to kind of, oh, the first Sabbath of my job was recently that I had
mhm.
to kind of think about what to do. And the idea of like, no, I need to take this day off in the middle of the week of the really busy week and just, not like rest. And I mean, and rest. That idea at first, I have to say, to be honest, I was like, I can't do that. I have
Yeah,
so much work. I have so much stuff to do. My boss is expecting this of me, this and that. Um, but I was honest with my boss. I got that day off. Um, and I was like, I'm just gonna see what happens. Okay. I'm
yeah,
just gonna see what happens. And I woke up that day in the best, like positive mood in
yeah,
that day I spent resting.
yeah,
And that was so necessary for me to be able to take that time off and kind of like look like I really meditated and like talked to the God of Israel like all that morning. I was just sitting outside in the sun. It was
mm,
it was like the warmest day of the week too. And
yeah,
I was just like just appreciating the life around me and what I have, what the God of Israel has been able to give in me. And I think that was just so needed because I think I had to turn the hum off of the
mhm,
world for a second, and that's just so necessary. Like as an Israelite in this world, as a human being in
yeah,
this world, you need time to kind of turn it off.
yeah, for
It's
sure.
really important to you.
Yeah, and I feel like Israel has, like you said, provided those values and those morals in our life to take with us um, forever, because the God of Israel does everything he does for a reason.
Mhm.
So he would know that we would need that one day out of the month to just
Right,
reset, to just
right.
minute, um, and not only, meditate on the scriptures and like pray and sing, but also to just take a step back from the craziness of the world that we step out into every day.
Mhm,
Because sometimes, the pressure can be a lot. The your responsibilities at your job or school or even in the home can sometimes get to you. But the Sabbath day is a day where you can just come and you can take that breather for a whole 24 hours and just be like, this is my time to
mhm,
focus on my God, to get with my brethren, and to all do the same thing in one accord. And it's also knowing that your brethren in different branches are also doing the same thing.
same time.
Right. So it's just like having that idea in your head and knowing that your people, your family are also doing the things that you're doing and you're not alone in that sense
Mhm,
either, can completely shift your entire perspective of how important it is to take time for yourself, take time for your God, and to really, meditate and take that breather.
mhm, mhm. That is like it just Israel fulfills a lot of the natural like like needs of our body and of
Mhm,
our soul and our spirit. Like it just does that naturally.
mhm.
And so, like, even just to go back to your question a little bit, like, does our culture influence us and in what ways it does? I think we definitely outlined that, and the culture that we have, there's no way it can't.
Yeah.
No way it can't. We were both like offered up in Israel. This is all we know.
Right,
There's no way it can't influence the decisions we make because at some point it just becomes one with who we are.
right, right. And that's what's so important and great about, growing up in Israel. Like when you're growing up, you have your parents' culture to kind of lean on. But
Mhm.
as you grow older, you form your own culture and your own relationship with the God of Israel. And then you start leaning on that and you see how it literally changes every single thing that you do, whether it comes to work or school or eventually raising a family,
Mm,
all these things. Like Israel is ingrained in every single thing that we do. And like you said, are people defined by their culture? At least we are,
yeah.
for a fact that
I
we
think so.
are.
Even I think we've dealt with so many challenges when it come to identity, being Black, being a woman, being of whatever, whatever. I think, like I said, we're both in our 20s. I think, I'll speak from my experience, you can speak from your own, but it's meshed in a way to where I don't feel like a push or pull from one group of my identity. Like I feel it's all
All
combined
the
to
same.
who I am
Yeah.
today. It's finally settled. I feel like there was years where I felt like I had to choose being Black in this space, being like solely a woman in this space, and not, calling into attention my Blackness or my Israelness and things like that. But now I feel like it's just it's like very intertwined into who I am as a person today.
Right, and that's where we wanna get to, right? That's the goal,
Right,
that's what our parents are preparing us for, that's what our leadership, our aunties, our uncles are preparing us for,
right,
to have Israel be ingrained in our lives and not have any separation. Like, Israel isn't just Saturday lessons, Israel isn't just new moons, Israel isn't just Sabbaths, it's
right,
every single day. You wake up, you're an Israelite. You go to sleep, you're an Israelite. Like, it's
right.
all, the same thing. Whether you go out one night or you don't, you're still Israel. So,
You're
like,
still Israel.
exactly.
You
So
just, you just are. You're Black, you're a woman, you're Israel. That's just what it
exactly,
is.
exactly. It all boils down to this is what you are, this is who
Right.
you are, and now you just have to find your way to make everything work.
Mhm.
Obviously, there will be the times where it's a little harder to do that, a little more difficult, but once you get in that groove and you get in that routine of like, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, it won't feel like a routine. It'll
Mhm.
just be life.
Right,
Here every day.
right.
So I think that's beautiful.
I definitely think that's it builds character, it builds strength. I hope this is anyone out there that's in that stage where they're having a little bit of identity crisis. I don't think I wasn't gonna limit it to age. I don't think it's when you're in college or when you're in high school. I think anyone at any age can have an
Any age,
identity
yeah.
crisis, right?
Mhm.
Hopefully it's hope out there that like as long as you're strong in who you are, it will level out.
Right,
Like you will be stronger in who you are.
right, for
Um,
sure.
yeah.
Oh my God, I just love this
I
conversation.
know.
Keep talking, but it looks like we're cutting it close on time. So again, um, I want to thank our viewers for tuning in. If you like what you heard, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the chat. Please also like, subscribe, share with anyone you think would love to hear this conversation. Again, the question for today, the little check-in for today was, are people defined by their culture? We would love to hear what your answers are and like share your perspective, share things that have happened to you in your past that have changed your perspective, and even talk about how Israel has shifted your perspective on life or what you do every day. We'd love to hear about the things that you guys do, the things that you guys get into, and we want to thank you guys for joining. We really enjoyed this conversation.
Lovely, lovely. I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on our conversation, what you guys want to bring to it. So catch us next time on the next weekly the next midweek check-in.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.